I wonder, like, again, we've talked about this before. For me, the way I'm seeing stuff is that at some moment there was nothing. That's how this has to work. At some moment there was nothing. And once nothing realized that there was nothing, it became everything. And everything had to then occur all at once. Time is relative to us and our experience. But as far as for creation and development, there was nothing and then there was everything. And so remove yourself in your religions, remove yourself in your wherever you stand on that. Just think about the beginning of it all. At the beginning, there had to have been nothing. There had to be a point where there's nothing, right? If you start counting to infinity, you had to start at the point where there was no one counting. We're like on a pathway, we're counting to infinity. And then if you remove, though, in that same count, you remove the notion of linear progression and you just have an infinite amount of numbers, there's still a point where there's not a number in an infinite amount of numbers that has to be included. Is it more so that all experiences are occurring at the same time? They're just at different frequencies. And then you, as a being, experience things differently. Like you experience time linearly. And is there an opportunity for other things to, like we talked about, when they talk about extraterrestrials, are they just phasing through periods? Are they future, what we consider for the way we live, future human beings that are just going back and being like, hey, you guys going to Disney World this week? No, we're going to go to we're going to go to 2025 and see how the midterm, or 2026 to see how the summer of love kicked off or whatever. Anyway, the idea is that in order for there to be something, there had to have been a point where there was nothing. And the instant where there was something, I believe in that instant, it was everything. But for us, we have a perception of time. So we're living along this linear procession of time. For the thing that was nothing, everything then came from the understanding that they were nothing, or the idea that there was nothing. That's the thing that constantly gets me, is that cycle. Is that when they talk about the expanding universe, I'm like, are we just in this cycle? Are we in this cycle where we're just going around and we're doing this all the time? Like, is that what's happening? Like a big giant clapping monkey? But our timeline and our exposure to it is so, like, our timeline, exposure, and understanding is so minute, but the conscious, collective conscious, there's this underlying seed. And it goes back to what you were talking about as far as predictive programming. And we talked about, is it predictive programming or is it intuitive? Almost like, are you really pulling things out of the ether because it's already happened? Just like people talk about their muse when they do art and they don't know where art comes from. Or when they get an inspiration to write a song and they just start writing and developing the song. Is it really because the song was never written, or is it because the song was already written? They're just the medium from which it's being applied now, right? They're on that frequency. They're just attuning into it. So that's always been kind of my thing. And that doesn't mean that people aren't original or they aren't creating these things. It means that they're just tapping into the ether and bringing it into this experience. And so that it was already there. It was already in this medium. And they were always going to be the one. Maybe in this existence, they weren't always the one who's going to be the one who created the song. Maybe someone else was going to create a very similar version or a slight tweak to it, right? They're the one who's doing it. They're the one who did it in this particular timeline that we're experiencing.